Albert, sorry, I almost said Lisa. Julia is opening the webinar.
Good morning, everyone. The meeting is called to order. Mr. Trobin, has anyone signed up for public comment?
Commissioners, good morning. Les Truman, General Counsel. We have a couple of people who signed up today. One who will go ahead and provide comments right now, and then a second will provide comments when we get to number 8. Ms. Purcell? Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Good morning, Chairman Daniels and members of the Commissioner Alvarez and Demerson. My name is Sylvia Purcell, founder and chief strategist of CAPED, the Coalition for Apprenticeship Partners in Economic Development. Just a quick thank you note to the commissioners who've been working with us on apprenticeship programs. As some of you know, this has taken us 3 legislative sessions to get something in the pipeline, but our chairman of the board, Dr. Steve Flores, couldn't join us. He's our newly elected of the board. He sends his regards. We are looking forward to continuing our work with you so that we can expand apprenticeship programs. It's been one of our passions since 2015 that we founded our coalition, and a word of thanks and for your leadership and support. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. All right. Good morning, Ms. Miller.
Good morning, sir.
All right. Agenda item 3, no cases to reconsider.
Correct, no cases.
Let's move to tax liability cases under agenda item 4. I believe we have 1 tax case on docket 12.
Yes, sir. The case is TD-20-062-0320. Commissioner Demerson?
I disagree with staff recommendation. The issue raised by the company in its MR, i.e. lack of proper response to the open records request and denial of an opportunity to present material evidence are serious. These concerns were not addressed on docket 2 and would be new evidence. Accordingly, we should hold a rehearing on those points.
I agree with staff's recommendation.
I concur with Commissioner Demerson.
Thank you, sir.
On agenda item 5, we have no fair housing cases for consideration.
Correct, no cases.
Under agenda item 6, no wage claim cases on docket 12 pulled for additional discussion.
Correct, none pulled for additional discussion. You should have received the wage claim short form dissent list for docket 12.
I'll move we accept staff recommendations on the remaining wage claim cases on docket 12.
I second the motion except for those cases on which I'm dissenting as reflected on the wage claim short form dissent list for docket 12.
I concur with the chairman's motion, except for the cases on which I'm dissenting is reflected in the wage claim chart form dissent list for docket 12.
Motion passes with the exceptions noted.
Thank you.
Let's move to agenda item 7 in consideration of unemployment insurance cases on docket 12. Please proceed when you're ready.
Case number 2470045, Commissioner Alvarez.
As the employer CA appeal was late due to the pandemic, we should deem the employer's appeal timely. However, the AT decision should be affirmed. The employer missed the AT hearing because they were only checking their mail once a week. Regarding the job separation, the employer has not shown misconduct. The owner decided to yell at the claimant and accuse him of theft in front of customers. The claimant denied the allegations of theft. The employer then discharged the claimant for creating a scene in front of customers. However, the owner was the party that chose to have the conversation in front of customers. Further, the claimant denied raising his voice prior to being discharged. The employer had the burden of proving misconduct and did not provide sufficient evidence to overcome the claimant's denial. Deem the employer's appeal timely and affirm no good cause, no misconduct, chargeback.
First, the employer's CA appeal should be deemed timely. Second, the AT decision should be modified. I agree that the employer did not have good cause for its non-appearance, but the remaining reviewable record supports the claimant being disqualified from benefits. Preponderance of the available evidence establishes that the claimant was fired after arguing with the employer in front of customers. As such, the claimant's conduct constituted work-connected misconduct. We should therefore find the employer's CA appeal timely and modify the AT decision. The employer did not have good cause for its non-appearance, misconduct, no chargeback, adequate employer response.
Timely commission appeal, modify the AT. Employer did not establish good cause for AT1. Misconduct, no chargeback, adequate employer response.
Short form dissent.
Yes, sir, Commissioner Alvarez.
Case number 28-04904. Chairman Daniel.
Because the commission communicated to the public on multiple occasions, including April 1st, 2020, that no employer would be charged based on separations caused by the pandemic, the employer could have reasonably relied on that information and been misled into failing to appeal timely. The employer's appeal should be deemed timely and the case should be resubmitted. Reverse the AT timely response to MPC resubmit.
The AT decision should be affirmed. The notice of maximum potential chargeback was sent to the employer on January 6, 2021. The notice was delivered electronically to the employer, was delivered electronically as the employer had elected. The deadline to protest the notice was February 5th, 2021. The employer opened the notice on March 1st, 2021, and filed the protest via fax on that same day. As there is no good cause exception to the timeliness rules, the employer's protest was late. Affirm the AT late protest to notice of maximum potential chargeback.
Based upon the employer's firsthand testimony about late receipt of the electronic chargeback notice, we should consider the employer's prompt response timely and have this case resubmitted on the merits of the chargeback issue.
We will resubmit the case.
Case number 2895519. Commissioner Alvarez.
The decision regarding fraud is not supportable. The claimant had a limited education and struggles with reading English and Spanish. He experienced difficulty getting in contact with TWC representatives when he called for assistance. The claimant had never previously filed a claim for benefits and believed since he had filed based on a separation from his second job, he did not need to report wages for his first job. Further, he believed TWC was already aware he was working. A finding of fraud is not appropriate in this case. Modify the AT good cause, appeal not timely, earnings adjustment of $2,218, no fraud, no overpayment, earnings adjustment of $11,945.
The AT decision is supportable, but clarification will be needed regarding the total amount of overpayment. The claimant had good cause to miss the first hearing due to his attorney's illness. However, the claimant's appeal was several months late, so the AT's dismissal of the claimant's appeal should be affirmed. The earnings adjustment determinations were appropriate due to the many weeks of unreported earnings that the claimant had. The fraud determination should be affirmed due to the high number of claims, weeks 16, that the claimant failed to report any earnings at all. The instructions of claimants are very clear that all work and earnings must be reported for each week claimed. Finally, we should send a memo to UIA and OS to confirm the total overpayments amount that the claimant must repay due to the fraud and earnings adjustments.
Modify the AT, claimant established good cause for AT1, timely claimant appeal as to the June 19th, 2020 determination. Resubmit for merits as to that determination. The forfeiture provisions of section 214.003 of the Act are applied. Overpayment, earnings adjustment, overpayment.
One moment, please. Did you want to modify any of your votes, sir?
Yeah, let me just. Ms. Miller, can I ask Chairman Daniel to repeat his request?
Claimant established good cause for AT1, timely claimant appeal as to the June 19th, 2020 determination. Resubmit for merits as to that determination. The forfeiture provisions of section 214.003 of the Act are applied. Overpayment and earnings adjustment overpayment.
Let me see if there's any adjustments to that.
Yes, sir.
Ms. Miller, I will agree with Chairman Daniel as to the good cause and timely appeal to the June 19th determination.
Yes, sir. So we will resubmit on the June 19th, 2020 determination. The fraud determination is affirmed. And the overpayment related to it is affirmed. And the other earnings adjustment is affirmed. So we will resubmit on that single issue only.
So for clarification, Ms. Miller, can I short form the portion of the fraud?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great.
Did you have any
I
comments?
agree with the chairman. Good.
Thank you.
Case number 2896138. Commissioner Alvarez,
The decision should be reversed. The claimant worked for a temporary help firm. For his last assignment, he earned $16 per hour. When that assignment ended, the employer offered him a new assignment with a pay rate of only $9 per hour. The claimant quit rather than accept such a low pay rate. The wage that was offered to the claimant was 56% of his prior wage. Further, the $9 per hour offered to the claimant was only 66% of the claimant's maximum wage demand of $13. I should say $13.50. Since the wage offered to the claimant was substantially below the 20% threshold, the claimant had good cause connected with the work for quitting. Reverse AT, no voluntary leaving, no overpayment, remand waiver.
The AT decision is supportable regarding the work separation and overpayment issues. The claimant had continued work available with the temporary staffing firm employer on the same basis as it had been working, but he turned down a one-day assignment due to a pay rate that was lower than he wanted. While the claimant's sentiment was understandable, it was only a one-day assignment, and there was every prospect that future assignments would pay higher rates. Importantly, the claimant admitted quitting without giving the employer a reasonable opportunity to deal with his concerns. The overpayment was based on benefits that were paid before the disqualifying work separation could be investigated. The overpayment issue was not properly before the appeal tribunal, so that portion of the decision should be voided. And the claimant's appeal on that point should be sent to the appeal tribunal so that a hearing can be held on that issue.
Excuse me, sir. Do you mean the overpayment issue or the waiver issue?
The overpayment issue? What was the question, overpayment or?
There are two issues in the case, which is the separation overpayment related to it. And then there was also a waiver issue erroneously added by the appeal tribunal that needs addressing. And Commissioner Alvarez had voted to remand the waiver issue.
So we're going to void the waiver ruling.
Yes, sir. And remand on which issues?
Void the waiver ruling and send the claimant's appeal on the waiver issue to the appeal tribunal.
Yes, sir. So your vote is disqualified, overpayment, void the waiver and remand.
Right.
Thank you.
Affirm the AT, voluntary leaving, overpayment, void the waiver ruling, reinstate the April 6, 2021 waiver denial and send that appeal to the AT.
Thank you.
Short form dissent.
Yes, sir. Commissioner Alvarez.
case number 2919229. Commissioner Alvarez,
The decision is not supportable. The claimant was discharged for escalating her concern of the chain of command. The claimant did not refuse to perform any task and completed the assignments given to her. The claimant's escalation of a grievance cannot be misconduct. Reverse the 18, no misconduct, and sever validity of claim.
The appeal tribunal decision should be modified. The validity of claim issue should be severed. As to the job separation, the employer stated in its documentation that the claimant was discharged for refusing to obey a direct order from her supervisor. Such behavior constitutes work-connected misconduct. As such, we should modify the AT decision, misconduct, sever the validity of claim issue.
Modify the 18, no misconduct, sever validity of claim.
Short form.
Yes, sir. Commissioner Dennison.
Case number 2953216. Commissioner Alvarez,
The decision is not supportable. The claimant was discharged for allegedly marking calls she did not make. The claimant was making the calls to patients and reviewing duplicate calls requests from the same patients after discussing all issues. The claimant was following the training she received. The claimant had filed an HR complaint a week before her discharge against her coworkers. After filing her complaint, she continued to perform her work with her coworkers and merely refrained from socializing with them. The claimant had no prior warnings regarding her work performance. The employer only submitted secondhand testimony to prove their allegations of misconduct. The claimant was discharged for reasons other than misconduct connected with the work. Reverse CAT, no misconduct, chargeback, and void adequate response.
The appeal tribunal decision should be modified. The claimant was discharged for failing to make patient calls. Per file documents contained in the record, the employer stated that its investigation revealed the claimant was not contacting patients, although she documented that she had done so. Such actions constituted work-connected misconduct. We should therefore modify the AT decision, misconduct, note chargeback, sever adequate response.
Modify the AT, misconduct, no chargeback, sever adequate response.
Short form dissent.
Yes, sir, Commissioner Alvarez.
case number 2957025. Commissioner Alvarez,
The AT decision is correct. The employer chose to discharge the claimant for unsatisfactory performance, and the claimant then resigned rather than be fired. Under well-established commission precedents, when an employee chooses to resign after the employer has made the decision to discharge him or her, the separation will be treated as an involuntary separation. The employer decided to discharge the claimant because he could not perform the job to the employer's expectations. He was a firefighter and could not meet the performance standards due to a lack of physical stamina. The claimant had just returned to work after a 2-month leave of absence due to an on-the-job injury. The claimant's unsatisfactory performance was caused by his medical condition and did not constitute misconduct connected with the work. Affirm the AT, no misconduct, bill the reimbursing employer.
The appeal tribunal decision should be reversed. The claimant resigned due to medical issues. However, per the employer, the claimant returned to full-duty work. In addition, the employer stated that light-duty work would have been available if the claimant had provided medical documentation regarding recommending the same. As such, the claimant quit without work-connected good cause. We should therefore reverse the AT decision, voluntary leaving, reimbursing employer not billed, adequate employer response.
Reverse the AT, voluntary leaving, reimbursing employer not billed, adequate employer response.
Short form dissent.
Yes, sir, Commissioner Alvarez.
case number 2960749. Commissioner Alvarez,
The decision is not supportable. The claimant was discharged for submitting a question to payroll, which the employer believes should have been submitted to HR. The employer has provided no argument for why this constituted misconduct. The claimant's submission of a question was not misconduct. Reverse the AT, no misconduct, bill reimbursing employer.
We should affirm the AT decision. The claimant was terminated when she failed to follow the employer's chain of command for complaining about her supervisor and seeking information about a substitute teacher. The claimant had numerous reprimands for workplace conduct and was placed on the intervention plan for her professional growth. Since the available record suggests that the claimant was aware of the employer's chain of command for reporting or inquiring about potential concerns, the claimant's conduct of bypassing the employer's chain of command constituted mismanagement of her position of employment and was misconduct connected with the work. Hence, we should affirm the AT decision, misconduct, reimbursing employer not billed.
Affirm the AT, misconduct, reimbursing employer not billed.
Short form dissent.
Yes, sir, Commissioner Alvarez.
case number 2967108. Commissioner Dimerson,
We should grant a rehearing in this case. After multiple incidents of inappropriate behavior, the claimant received a final warning. 2 weeks after the warning, the claimant was discharged. The employer's response to the notice of claim states that the final incident occurred on December 27, 2020. Other than this one detail, the record does not contain any specific information about the final incident that led to the claimant's discharge. This information is relevant and material to the disposition of this case. Accordingly, we should rehear this case to adequately develop the record regarding the final incident that led to the claimant's discharge.
The AT decision should be reversed. The employer presented secondhand testimony of the claimant's alleged misconduct, which the claimant denied in her firsthand sworn testimony. Therefore, the claimant's testimony has greater weight in this case in light of the established commission precedent. Based on the claimant's denial of a misconduct allegations, the claimant was discharged for reasons other than misconduct connected with the work. Reverse AT, no misconduct, chargeback, void adequate response.
Modify the AT, misconduct, no chargeback, sever adequate response.
What's the chairman's vote again?
Misconduct, no chargeback, sever adequate response.
I want to agree with the chairman.
Thank you, sir.
Short form dissent.
Yes, sir. Commissioner Alvarez.
Case number 2991155. Commissioner Dimerson,
We should reverse the appeal tribunal decision on timeliness based on non-receipt. Because the employer's witness confused the current case with a different appeal also involving the same parties, it was difficult to ascertain whether the employer received the determination at issue. The employer's confusion was reasonable as the other case ruled that the claimant had not filed a valid claim. However, in its appeal to the AT, the employer alleged non-receipt of the determination as well as lack of help from TWC despite multiple attempts to seek assistance. Now, in its appeal to the commission, the employer again stated that it did not receive the determination in question based on the employer's reasonable confusion at the hearing on the allegations of non-receipt and on the ineffective assistance from TWC resources. We should deem the employer's appeal timely and resubmit the case for merits testimony.
The AT decision is supportable. The determination in this case was sent to the employer's correct address of record, but the employer faxed its appeal one day after the deadline. As the employer failed to file a timely appeal, it should be dismissed. Late employer appeal, no misconduct, chargeback.
Reverse AT, timely employer appeal, resubmit.
We will resubmit this case.
case number 3029379. Commissioner Dimerson,
We should grant the employer's motion for rehearing. The employer had provided new evidence in the form of two witnesses who were unavailable to participate in the hearing due to very compelling reasons. Evidence from these witnesses is vital to establishing that the claimant was sleeping at work or constantly on social media. Sleeping on the job or continually being on one's phone instead of working are not simply failure to meet the employer's expectations. These actions stand on their own as misconduct. Thus, because the employer has met the three required criteria, we should grant the employer's motion for rehearing.
The employer has offered testimony from an owner who was not present at the prior hearing. The employer has not explained how the owner's testimony will change the outcome of this case. The employer has not offered any additional evidence that would tend to indicate the claimant ever met their expectations. The motion should be denied. Deny MR.
Deny the motion for rehearing.
Maintain my previous dissent.
Yes, sir. Commissioner Dimerson.
case number 3045884. Commissioner Alvarez,
The decision should be modified. The claimant was discharged for violating the employer's attendance policy because he did not apply for an unpaid leave of absence after becoming ill. The claimant left work because he was ill. He visited a doctor who provided medical documentation of the illness. He timely notified the employer of the absence, and he provided the medical documentation to the employer. Commission policy holds that an absence due to illness, when the claimant provides timely notice of the absence and documentation of the illness to the employer, is not misconduct. Because the separation resulted from the claimant's medically verified illness, the employer's account should be protected from charge. Modify the AT, no misconduct, no chargeback, MBI, void adequate response.
We should modify the AT decision. The claimant failed to return to work after he was cleared to work by his medical provider. Since the claimant did not have paid time off due to his extensive absences, he was advised to apply for a leave of absence to protect his job. Although the claimant was provided over a month to submit the requisite paperwork, the claimant failed to provide the documents for the employer's review or take any action to protect his job. The claimant was thereafter terminated. Since the claimant failed to provide the employer with documentation or protecting his job, the claimant's conduct constituted a mismanagement of his position of employment and was misconduct connected with the work. Hence, we should modify the AT decision, misconduct, no chargeback, sever the adequate employer response issue.
Modify the AT, misconduct, no chargeback, sever adequate response.
Short form dissent.
Yes, sir, Commissioner Alvarez.
Case number 3049060, Commissioner Demerson,
We should modify the AT decision. First, I agree that the employer filed a timely appeal. Concerning the job separation, the available evidence in conjunction with the claimant's firsthand testimony shows that the claimant's job separation arose from the residual effects of her medical conditions, residual effects of her medical condition. Since the record supports a finding that the claimant's separation was a result of a medically verifiable illness, we should modify the AT decision, timely employer appeal, no misconduct, no chargeback, MBI.
Ms. Miller, I would agree with Commissioner Demerson.
Affirm the AT, timely employer appeal, no misconduct, chargeback.
There's a majority vote for MVI, protecting the employer's account. Did you want to dissent on the chargeback issue?
Short form dissent.
Thank you, sir.
case number 3052264, Commissioner Alvarez.
The AT decision should be reversed. The claimant worked in collections for the employer. Her performance metrics declined when she had difficulty enforcing collections during the summer after the pandemic started. The employer warned her of the issue, and they eventually placed her on a formal corrective action, which their policy states gives time to employees to improve performance. The employer testified that the corrective action was a 90-day probation, but they fired her after only 30 days after the probation began. While the employer's written policy does not allow them to skip disciplinary steps when terminating an employee, it does not provide for changing the corrective actions that are enacted. Commission precedents holds that an employer's failure to follow its own disciplinary policies means that an employee's discharge is for reasons other than misconduct. Here, the employer placed the claimant on a 90-day probation to improve her performance metrics, but then fired her after only 30 days. Therefore, because the employer did not follow their written disciplinary policies, the claimant was discharged for reasons other than misconduct. Reverse the 18, no misconduct, chargeback, void, adequate response.
We should modify the appeal tribunal decision. The claimant's performance declined despite having met the employer's expectations in the past. Because the claimant had been warned about this matter, she mismanaged her position of employment. We should modify the AT decision, misconduct, no chargeback, sever the adequate response issue.
Modify the AT, misconduct, no chargeback, sever adequate response.
Short form dissent.
Yes, sir, Commissioner Alvarez.
Case number 3058157, Commissioner Demerson.
We should reverse the appeal tribunal decision. The parties agree that the final incident involved the claimant refusing to install a security camera for a client as instructed. While the claimant alleged that he had not been trained on the task, the employer disputed this allegation. Furthermore, the claimant supervisors would have been available to assist if necessary. The task that the claimant was being instructed to perform was neither illegal nor dangerous to the claimant or the client. By outright refusing to perform the work without even attempting to comply with the request or asking for help, the claimant mismanaged his position of employment. We should reverse the AT decision, misconduct, no chargeback, adequate employer response.
The decision should be affirmed. The claimant provided credible firsthand testimony that he only declined to install the camera system as he had never done such a project before and had no training in how to install the cameras. It was reasonable for the claimant to decline the task that he was not properly trained to perform. The claimant's inability to perform the work does not constitute misconduct connected with the work. The employer only provided secondhand hearsay statements to provide that the claimant had been trained on this task and had completed similar tasks in the past. I would not agree to a rehearing as the employer has not provided a compelling reason as to why the new evidence to their commission appeal was not offered earlier. The employer has presented insufficient evidence to prove that the claimant committed misconduct connected with the work. Affirm the AT, no misconduct chargeback.
Reverse the AT, misconduct, no chargeback, adequate employer response.
Short form dissent.
Yes, sir. Commissioner Alvarez.
Case number 3066726. Chairman Daniel,
Because the commission communicated to the public on multiple occasions, including April 1st, 2020, that no employer would be charged based on separations caused by the pandemic. The employer could have reasonably relied on that information and been misled into failing to appeal timely. The employer's appeal should be deemed timely and the case should be remanded. Reverse the AT, timely response to NMPC, remand.
The decision should be modified. The employer admitted they received the notice and failed to provide a timely response because they were busy with other claims. The employer has not expressed a valid exception to the timeliness rule. Modify the AT, late protest to notice of maximum potential chargeback.
Okay, although Commission Rule 815.32I8 provides that there is no good cause exception to the timeliness rules, I'm concerned that in the context of the pandemic and the overwhelming volume of claims that the employers had to deal with, the chargeback notice did not include the possibility of responding to claims in batches. If the employer had been advised via the notice that it is possible to protest multiple notices in one letter, they could have handled the huge volume of claims they had. I believe we should seek and ask the General Counsel's Office to look into whether the lack of notice of the multiple claim protest alternative would be compatible with the exception in Rule 32 for incorrect or misleading advice from TWC. In following that analysis, we should have this case resubmitted for further consideration.
Ms. Miller, I would agree with Commissioner Demerson. To resubmit.
I believe that would make the majority vote timely response to the notice of maximum potential chargeback and remand. Is that way you wish to vote, sir?
I'm going to stay with my agreement with Commissioner Demerson.
Oh, I'm sorry. Commissioner Demerson, I misheard you. We will resubmit the case after a memo from OGC is requested.
case number 3071208. Commissioner Demerson,
We should affirm the TAT decision. The claimant testified that he was forced to quit because he was not permitted to stay in the country without a sponsor. However, he provided conflicting information in his fact-finding statements by alleging that he had wanted to move to the United States to look for better opportunities. Since the claimant failed to provide credible testimony concerning the circumstances leading to a separation, we should affirm the AT decision, ballot an issue claim, voluntary leaving, void the reimbursement issue. In the alternative, we should conduct a rehearing in this case. The record was insufficiently developed about the claimant's hiring agreement with the employer and lacks evidence to substantiate the claimant's assertion that he was unable to stay in the country due to circumstances beyond his control. As such, we should conduct a rehearing to develop the record and obtain relevant documentation to substantiate the claimant's allegation that he was ineligible to reside in the country and continue in employment.
The decision is not supportable. The claimant was required to quit his job in Germany and return to the United States when his father, who was in Germany on active duty military assignment, was transferred to a Texas base. The claimant was unable to remain in Germany after his father was transferred because he lost his dependent sponsorship status under the NATO status of forces agreement. As the claimant's separation was caused by the operation of an international treaty and not due to any act of misconduct on the claimant's part, the commission should find that the claimant's separation was involuntary. Since the employer was a federal agency, the appeal tribunal properly voided the reimbursement billing ruling. Modify the AT, no voluntary leaving, void reimbursement, and sever validity of claim.
Modify the AT, voluntary leaving, void the reimbursement ruling, sever validity of claim.
I'm sorry, gentlemen, I'm going to ask for some clarification. Commissioner Alvarez, your vote was sever the validity of claim issue, no disqualification, VL, void reimbursing. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And Chairman Daniel, could you please repeat your vote?
Voluntary leaving, void reimbursement ruling, sever validity of claim.
Does that agree with your vote,
I
sir?
agree with the chairman.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Miller, short form dissent.
Yes, sir, Commissioner Alvarez.
Case number 3079540, Commissioner Alvarez.
The decision should be affirmed. On the day of the final incident, the claimant informed the employer that she was quitting. The claimant was a first grade teacher and a disruptive special needs student had been placed in her class. The student had previously assaulted the claimant, and the claimant had notified the employer of the assault and other disruptions. The employer ignored the claimant's request to remove the student from her classroom. Another teacher was asked to monitor the student, but that teacher did not provide continuous supervision. At the final incident, the student disrupted the class, including breaking a television, a computer, laptop, and other property. After another teacher came to monitor the students, the claimant left the classroom, told the employer that she was quitting, and went to her car. She did not work for the employer again. The employer's failure to adequately address the claimant's complaints was unfortunate to the students, and it established adequate cause connected with the work for a claimant to quit. Affirm the AT, no voluntary leaving, bill reimbursing employer.
We should reverse the appeal tribunal decision. First, I agree that when the claimant resigned in lieu of termination, the employer initiated the job separation. The claimant had been previously warned for her behavior in front of students, and for leaving the building without notifying her supervisor. The warning also directed her to complete 3 sessions with the wellness and support team. During the final incident, the claimant again left the premises without notice to her supervisor. She also admitted to not attending the 3 wellness sessions as required. Thus, because the claimant violated the terms of her most recent reprimand and failed to follow instructions, she mismanaged her position of employment. We should reverse the AT decision, misconduct, reimbursing employer not billed, adequate employer response.
Reverse the AT, misconduct, reimbursing employer not billed, adequate employer response.
Short form dissent.
Yes, sir, Commissioner Alvarez. And that is the last unemployment insurance case pulled for additional discussion on docket 12. You should have received the UI short form dissent list for docket 12.
I move we accept staff recommendations on remaining UI cases on docket 12.
I second the motion except for those cases on which I am dissenting as reflected on the UI short form dissent list for docket 12.
And I concur with the chairman's motion, except for the cases on which I'm dissenting as reflected in the UI short form dissent list for docket 12.
Motion passes with the exceptions noted.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. That brings us to the end of agenda items 3 through 7. We'll be taking a short break. No, do it because
Roll.
And we're back. This is agenda item 8, the 7th tranche of child care block grant funding.
Good morning, Chairman, Commissioners. For the record, Reagan Miller with Child Care and Early Learning Division. Today, we are presenting the 7th tranche discussion paper, which proposes making $314.75 million available for child care subsidies for low-income families. Our overarching goal is to serve more low-income families, and by repurposing some of the unspent service industry recovery funding, we can provide these funds more flexibly to meet local demands for subsidized child care. Our implementation strategy is to make these funds available in a way that allows boards to ramp up during the last months of BCY 22 from May through September, so that they're better able to enter board contract year 23 positioned to serve more kids. As you're aware, we piloted the Service Industry Recovery Program and made up to $500 million available to serve around 55,000 children. Enrollments were open from August of 21 through the end of March of 22. And overall, we're seeing about 30% or so of the total number of kids enrolled. So we are expecting to have a balance of SERF funding. Rather than just extending the Service Industry Recovery Program, we are recommending that we provide some additional flexibility with these funds and allow boards to serve all low-income families. So the seventh tranche repurposes some unspent SER along with some additional stimulus funding and recommends making these funds available over the next 2.5 years. 46.25 million, again, at the end of this board contract year, 138.75 million in 23, and 127.75 million in 24. We're currently putting together a recommendation for you to consider on how to distribute the 46 million for this year, and we'll bring that forward to the next meeting in April. And I also want to highlight how much money in total you would be making available in 23 and 24, because you previously took action in November to approve some funding for low-income childcare. So as we look forward to those 2 years, when you consider your past action and what's on the table today, you would be approving $260.2 million in each of those years, 23 and 24. And of course, we'll develop more precise performance expectations as we get closer to that time. But if you look forward to next year, we'll be able to serve over 37,000 more children with this action today. And so that concludes my remarks, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Can you stand by for those questions? We have a public commenter.
Yes.
Commissioners, we have one public commenter. We have Brooks Jones. Mr. Jones, if you can unmute yourself.
Hi, my name is Brooks. We're very excited about this funding and the repurposing of the SERV grant. Some of our questions are, with the SERV grant, they made it where they could not get on the wait list, or families cannot do certain things. So the continuation of this fund, letting them know that they can get on the wait list for normal funding or regular nutrition, and what that would look like. Also letting providers know that they the total number of children that will be served in the area, and then what the number will be in 2025, I believe. So that way we know to expect a drop off and what that will look like as a provider. Just kind of concerned there, getting our numbers and being able to project there. Just clear, transparent communication from workforce boards to providers yearly on what we can expect. That would be very important for us. But overall, we are very excited of this repurposing. I think it's a wonderful play, and excited to take care of more of our families that need it. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Reagan, questions or comments?
Chairman, I have some comments. So Reagan, first of all, thank you for all you've done during all this whole process with the tranches. As you're aware, I've met with many folks that you and I have met with in previous conversations regarding childcare. This expanded childcare funding will provide Texas families much needed support so that they can make ends meet and improve employment opportunities. As we move forward allocating the remaining COVID childcare funds, we also need to take into consideration the needs of childcare workers who struggle obtaining competitive living wages. I believe that we should take some steps to provide economic assistance to them. I would like for staff to research and develop initiatives to provide childcare workers one-time financial benefits in the form of a gas and grocery cards to provide some relief from those expenses that have been particularly impacted by the current inflationary trend in our economy. I also believe that some of the COVID childcare funds would be effective in exploring solutions to the childcare worker wage problem. I request for staff to provide an analysis of a career pathways expansion that specifically targets childcare workers and provides advancement opportunities from early childcare or early childhood through pre-K, kindergarten, higher education levels. Again, thank you for all the work you're doing, Reagan.
No comments other than just thanks for all the work that you're doing. It's pretty amazing. So we're doing some good work in that space.
Thank you.
This is the seventh tranche.
It is.
How many more tranches?
I would say several.
Good work. All right, is there a motion?
Chairman, I move that we approve the plan and methodology for the distribution of the seventh tranche of CCDF COVID-19 federal funding initiatives as recommended by staff and described in the discussion paper.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. We're unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you. This is agenda item 9, program year 2022 and fiscal year 2023 planning estimates.
Good morning, Chairman, Commissioners, Mr. Cerna. For the record, Chris Nelson, Chief Financial Officer. This morning, you have before you the FY23, PY22 planning estimates prepared in accordance with the methodology described in Chapter 800 and using last year's factor data as we continue compiling all the factor data for FY23. The Wioa planning estimate amounts represent the planning estimate allotments received by the Department of Labor, which would go into effect July 1st, 2022, when the Wioa contract year start. The remaining programs in the planning estimate reflect the budgetary amounts available for the FY23 allocations. As we build the FY23 operating budget this summer, we will bring the final allocations for the remaining programs. The child care planning estimate of just over $1 billion represents the base amount available with existing CCDF funds. But with the amounts Reagan Miller just got approved, there's an additional $260 million of COVID funds available for direct care, and staff are looking at alternative ways to distribute these funds to ensure full utilization when bringing back the allocations this summer. For childcare, we are also looking at providing a similar number for FY24 based off available funding. And at this time, I'm only asking for permission to publish this on our website since these aren't the final allocations, and that's concludes my comments.
Any questions or comments?
None here, Chairman.
None.
Is there any objection to publishing this on the website?
Nope.
Hearing no objection. Thanks, sir. Item 10, policy concept for Chapter 800 allocations and Chapter 805 reallocations of AEL statewide funds.
Good morning, Chairman Daniel, Commissioner Alvarez, Commissioner Dimerson, and Mr. Cerna. For the record, Mahalia Baldini with the Workforce Development Division. Commissioners, before you today for your consideration for approval is a policy concept related to potential rule amendments for Chapter 800 General Administration and Chapter 805 Adult Education and Literacy. The policy concept outlines 5 main issues. The first is related to digital literacy. A recent rider requires TWC to permit digital literacy activities in its programs, and for this reason, staff added terms and definitions for digital literacy, which is an allowable AEL activity. Issues 2 and 3 relate to the deobligation and reallocation of adult education and literacy funds. Currently, deobligation rule provides a time frame for staff to review expenditure and performance data. This is between the months of 4 and 7 or October through January. A proposed rule amendment would change this to be any time frame after month 4. On the reallocation of those funds, we've included meeting performance measures as criteria to receive any deobligated funds, and also laid out that when needed, the commission may reallocate funds to grant recipients outside of a workforce area when where the funds were originally deobligated. Issue 4 provides an overview of definitions and terms that have been added or modified. And then issue 5 outlines clarifying language throughout the chapter. Staff recommends amending AEL rules in Chapter 800 and Chapter 805 to enhance the AEL statewide system and grant commission flexibility in deobligating and reallocating grant funds. That concludes my comments, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any comments or questions?
None here, Chairman.
None.
Is there a motion?
I move that we approve the policy concept for amending chapters 800 and 805 as discussed by staff and post a policy concept for comment.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. We're unanimous.
Thank you.
This is agenda item 11, policy concept for Chapter 839 tax refund pilot program.
Good morning, Chairman Daniel, Commissioner Alvarez, Commissioner Dimerson, and Mr. Sarna. For the record, Carrie Ballast with the Workforce Development Division. Commissioners, before you today for your consideration for approval is a policy concept relating to rulemaking to establish a tax refund pilot program to implement Senate Bill 1524, from the 87th Texas Legislature regular session. Senate Bill 1524 amended Texas Tax Code, Chapter 181, by adding a new section 151.4292, tax refund pilot program for certain persons who employ apprentices. The tax code as amended allows TWC's executive director to certify up to 100 eligible entities in Texas for a tax refund provided by the comptroller's office of up to $2,500 per eligible apprentice. Each certified entity is allowed up to 6 apprentices if 50% of their active apprentices are veterans, foster youth, military spouses, or women. Priority is given to rural apprenticeship programs offering training in emerging or developing occupational fields. Staff recommends establishing rules in new Chapter 839, Subchapter A, to implement Senate Bill 1524. This concludes my remarks, and I'm available to answer any questions you may have.
Comments or questions?
None here, Chairman.
None here.
Is there a motion?
Chairman, I move that we approve the policy concept for Chapter 839 and post to the TWC website for a 3-week informal comment period.
A second.
Been moved and seconded. We're unanimous.
Thank
you. So agenda item 12, policy concept for Chapter 839 grants for registered apprenticeship programs by veteran and military personnel.
Thank you again. Good morning, Chairman Daniel, Commissioner Alvarez, Commissioner Demerson, and Mr. Serna. For the record, Carrie Ballast with the Workforce Development Division. Commissioners, before you today for your consideration for approval is a policy concept relating for rulemaking to establish the Veterans Apprenticeship Training Grant Program to implement Senate Bill 337 from the 87th Texas Legislature regular session. Texas Labor Code, Section 302.00341 allows TWC to develop and administer a program to provide grants to one or more nonprofit organizations to facilitate a veterans or transitioning military service members' participation in registered apprenticeship programs. A grant would be used for recruitment or assistance provided to veterans or transitioning service members, and the proposed rules establish and provide guidelines for the grant program. Staff recommends establishing rules in new Chapter 839, Subchapter B, to implement Senate Bill 337. This concludes my remarks. I'm available to answer any questions that you may have.
Comments or questions?
None here, Chairman.
None.
Is there a motion?
Chairman, I move that we approve the policy concept for Chapter 839 and post to the TWC website for a 3-week informal comment period.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. We're unanimous.
Thank you.
Good job.
Thank you. This is agenda item 13, Chapter 854, publication for public comment on BET changes approved by Rehabilitation Services.
Good morning, Chairman Daniel, Commissioner Alvarez, Commissioner Demerson, and Mr. Sedna. For the record, Lizette Hinojosa with the Vocational Rehabilitation Services Division. Commissioners, before you today for your consideration for approval are the proposed rules relating to amendments to Chapter 854 Business Enterprises of Texas. In an open meeting on November 2nd, 2021, the commission approved a related policy concept and directed staff to draft the proposed rules that are before you today. Staff also posted the policy concept to TWC's website for 3 weeks to solicit input from local workforce development boards. No comments were received. The proposed amendment to Chapter 854 will amend the Business Enterprises of Texas rules to incorporate the changes approved by RSA. The rules in Chapter 854 require amendments to incorporate the revisions approved by RSA to bring the BET program into compliance with the Randolph-Shepard Act. Staff recommends submitting these proposed rules for publication in the Texas Register for a 30-day public comment period. Staff also requests the ability to make minor changes to the document in order to comply with publication requirements of the Texas Register and the Office of Secretary of State. This concludes my presentation. I'm available for questions.
Any comments or questions?
Thanks for the report. Thank you.
None here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there a motion?
Chairman, I move that we approve the proposed rule amendments to 40 Texas Administrative Code, Chapter 854, Business Enterprises of Texas, for publication in the Texas Register and public comment as recommended by staff.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. We're unanimous. Thank you. This is agenda item 14, acceptance of pledges. for board contract year 2021 and 2022 childcare matching funds.
Good morning, Chairman Daniel, Commissioner Alvarez, and Commissioner Demerson, and Mr. Cerna. For the record, Sandra Williams, Workforce Development Division. The Texas Workforce Commission allocates federal funding for childcare services from the Child Care and Development Fund, CCDF, to local workforce areas. For a portion of the CCDF funding, local workforce development boards are required to secure and submit local matching funds to TWC in accordance with federal regulations and TWC Chapter 809 Child Care Service Rules and TWC Chapter 800 General Administration Rules. Boards submit annual local match pledges from private and public entities to secure federal child care funds pursuant to Section 809.17 and to maximize resources for child care needs in the community. Supporting documents include 26 board contract year 22 match agreements from 16 boards, which include Brazos Valley, Cameron County, Capital Area, Dallas County, Gulf Coast, Heart of Texas, Lower Rio Grande Valley, Middle Rio Grande Valley, North Texas, Northeast Texas, Panhandle, Southeast Texas, South Plains, Tarrant, Texoma, Upper Rio Grande, and West Central Texas. Boards have currently secured 106.34% of the statewide child care local match target for BCY 22, with all boards either meeting or exceeding their local match target. Staff recommends child care pledges for donation, transfers, and certifications for expenses for BCY 22 in the amount of $9,748,190. This concludes my remarks, and I'm available for any questions.
Comments or questions?
Thank you, Ms. Wioa.
I just want to say thanks to those partners that are pledging and working with our local workforce solution offices.
Thank you.
Is there a motion?
Chairman, I move that we accept child care match in the amount of $9,748,190 for board contract year 2022.
Mr. Chairman, has Sandra been before us before? Because she's making a beeline to the seats.
I was going to take up that issue after the motion.
I filled in for Mr. Weaver one time in the past.
I remember. I was going to defend you.
Okay.
She's making a beeline.
Let me tell you something. Someone who observes this process and knows to just go on and get out of there when you can, that's good
on it.
observation. of the
You're right.
process. We have a motion pending.
Second
It's
motion.
been moved and seconded, and we're unanimous on that motion.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. We don't have anything, I believe, on items 15 or 16. Item 17, board nominations.
Good morning, Chairman, Commissioners, and Mr. Cerna. For the record, Cherie Dudley with the Workforce Development Division. For your consideration today, we have workforce board nominations for Greater Dallas, West Central Texas, Panhandle, and Southeast Texas. Staff seeks guidance on the presented nominees, and I'm here to answer any questions you may have.
Any comments or questions?
Ms. Dudley, I would recommend you stay there until Commissioner Demerson finishes.
Thank you, will do.
I have no questions.
No questions.
Is there a motion?
Chairman, I move to approve the board nominees for Greater Dallas, West Central Texas, Panhandle, and Southeast Texas.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. We're unanimous.
Thank you.
Commissioner Demerson, can the witness be excused?
She is. She's already gone, so.
This is agenda item 18, legislative proposals. We don't have anything there. Is there a legislative report today? No. How about an executive director's report?
Just very quickly to mention appreciation for all of our VR counselors on today, National Rehabilitation Counselor Appreciation Day, March 22nd. I know our counselors have been through a whole lot and done a whole lot and continue to serve our customers. And I wanted to take this opportunity to recognize all of them throughout the state.
All right. Anything else? I have a request, Ed. I've been hearing very recently from a group of employers. We would call them non-LEU base period employers who are seeing some increases to their tax rates from the pandemic. We took a lot of measures to really assist employers in mitigating their exposure and doing several things. They've raised some pretty compelling issues with me related to both the chargebacks that the non-LEU based period employers received, and then certainly the effect that those chargebacks are going to have on their tax rate, not only this year, but for a couple of years moving forward. I would ask that you please have staff look into this issue and bring back a recommendation on the best course of action to ensure that these employers have a fair chance to have their chargeback cases heard by TWC. Thank you. Anything else for Mr. Cerna?
None here, Chairman.
Anything to come before the commission?
You have anything?
I don't have anything.
I do. I have two items real quick. I want to, first of all, thank Sylvia for attending. I think she's left out or what have you, but the work that they're doing, appreciate that. And then Brooke Jones for continuing to weigh in on the childcare side. Reagan, I appreciate you guys hearing from those employers and seeking their input as we move forward. And then lastly, just this past weekend, I had an opportunity to attend the Fort Irwin National Training Center out in the Mojave Desert. And so Bob Gear was there with the 1st Cavalry out of Fort Hood, and those men and women are doing phenomenal work, our military, serving in our military and protecting our country. And so appreciate that experience this past weekend. So Bob, thank you guys for all that you're continuing to do. Bob somewhere there, out there in the audience. Okay, thank you.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
Chairman, I move that we adjourn.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to adjourn. We're adjourned.